Would you want men to be dependent on women and have women be the predominant mode of production under capitalism?
I don't think it's possible.
But would you want that?
Well, I couldn't want a thing I don't think is possible.
Why?
Because it's not possible.
Well, I mean, why is it not possible?
It's not possible because women are not capable of doing the same types of things that men are capable of doing.
Such as?
Inside of society, enforcement.
Enforcement? Mm-hmm. So like police and...
Not military.
Military?
Mm-hmm. Military, policing,
I don't think
special
men
services.
Really are, I don't think men really are capable of that.
I mean, the men have gone and fought global wars time and time again and won.
Yeah, and what outcomes do they have?
They win the war.
They suffer severe PSD. They have a hard time integrating into society. I mean, that doesn't seem like a natural condition for men to be subjected to.
There can be symptoms of violence, but remember, not everybody gets PTSD, even combat veterans. A lot of them don't have PTSD. Some get PTSD.
Right.
But not only that, that's a coping mechanism. It's going to be individualistic. Men are definitely capable of extreme...
But it is an outcome of being exposed to extreme violence. Only for some people. I could say that about women.
Yeah, you can, but the problem when it comes down to enforcement is that women can't do enforcement.
What do you mean?
So I'll give you the easy hypothetical.
Okay.
If all men tomorrow decide that women in the United States are slaves, are women in the United States slaves?
No.
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 Why wouldn't they be?
I think it would be
how could women stop it?
I mean, it would just depend essentially on like access to resources.
Yeah, men have the access to all the resources because they made you slaves.
Well, that's how women could stop it.
Women couldn't.
It would just be a fight over resources.
How come women can't stop it in Islamic nations then? When they just go, okay, you're all slaves.
Well, obviously, in Islamic nations, they don't have access to specific resources.
Nobody has access to resources if men don't allow access to those resources. Nobody, because men have a monopoly on force. That's feminist theory. Feminists understand, even Marxist feminists know this, that men have a monopoly on force. So, in other words, if men collectively...
Under patriarchy, I agree.
No, under any hierarchy, they're going to need to have men as their monopoly on force. I'll give you an example. If tomorrow men decided to enslave all women would be enslaved. However, if tomorrow all women decided to enslave all men, they do not have the force doctrine and requisite necessary to do so. They could not do it. They just couldn't do it
within any context?
No.
So if women had access to all the drones, if women had access to all the water supply,
who repairs them all?
Women had access,
we repair them all.
If women had access to, women can have the capacity to repair. I don't understand,
Okay, so here's what I would say. Let's do this experiment this way. If women had access to all of the firearms on Earth that exist, okay, and every weapon which exists, and they have access to all of that, they still don't have the requisite brute force that would be necessary to keep men under control. They just wouldn't. It wouldn't be possible to do long term.
What do you mean
even
by
short term?
What do you mean by brute force? That they just wouldn't be able to pull the trigger?
No, that men are much, much, much stronger, and that guns are only an equalizer until men take your guns.
Right, and obviously they would have to get close enough. But I don't care how strong you are if you don't have water and food. What are you going to do?
Well, it's really simple then. Do you think that if you were the head of a prison, would you rather have all male or all female guards? If you were dealing with dangerous prisoners, even if both had access to guns.
I guess it would depend what the goal is. I think
to keep the prisoners who are dangerous under control. I
think women can make really great police officers because they are less likely to use excessive force. They're more likely to de-escalate, where men are more likely to escalate.
More likely to get disarmed, more likely to get beaten up, more likely to accidentally shoot a suspect. They're more likely to do all sorts of things to the contrary as well. But there's also way fewer females who are in the police force because they can't meet the minimum requirements, which are necessary to be a cop. They can't meet the necessary minimum physical requirements. Same thing in the military. They can't meet the necessary minimum physical requirements to be in the infantry. Most women can't do it.
Right.
So men have a monopoly on force, and because of force doctrine, this ends up coming down to this idea. If it is the case, you say that women can do anything that men can do. I counter this by saying they cannot. They cannot do enforcement. This is uniquely a male thing. There are some women who can be introduced who can meet these standards, but on average they can't.
Well, I think if we're like to kind of bring it to an analogy, if the fence is 6 feet tall and most women are 5'8", then yeah, of course they're not going to be able to meet that standard. So is the standard just specific to certain male criteria that...
Well, it would be the criteria of you need to handle a male. So if you're a female police officer, you need to be able to handle a male, right?
Yeah, but obviously, like, you have tools to aid in that. That's what I'm saying. Like, just because women aren't meeting these criteria
doesn't mean that... Do you have to get close
that...
to a male when you're a police officer as a female in order to put, like, handcuffs on them, stuff like that?
Yeah, but you have, like, pepper spray and stun guns.
Yeah, and routinely women get disarmed, and they're routinely overpowered by suspects. Routinely. Happens often. And
sure, and men often use excessive force, and then they're sued.
Yeah,
and
maybe,
then people die.
But when you say men use excessive force, you're just demonstrating my point that men have a monopoly on force. Yes, maybe it's excessive, but they're capable of using it.
Use force, sure.
No. They're just better at using force because they're much stronger. They're much stronger. They have much denser bones, so they're much more capable.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, so
the average male is stronger, sure.
Well, significantly stronger. It's not an insignificant amount between the average male and average female. Now, I want this point to drive home because it's often stated like, oh, yeah, there's this small marginal difference. No, it's a significant difference. 60, 70% in many cases.
Okay.
Much, much, much stronger. This being the case, men have the complete monopoly on force doctrine because they're much, much, much stronger. Just raw brute force, which if you reduce rights, you reduce society, reduce everything to its rawest principle, it's going to be brute force. I want to make you do thing. I always have this.
I don't agree because with violence there can definitely come consequences that are not desirable in terms of the outcome. Like if men wanted women to be slaves, who determines if the species goes on?
Men.
Women.
No, men, if you were slaves.
How?
The same way they did in Rome. They impregnated their slaves.
Well, but women could just commit suicide.
Yeah, why didn't they in Rome?
Well, wouldn't that just be black swan fallacy? Just because there's that one example where they did.
Oh, no.
I think
that's
to a
in
specific degree.
Here, we'll give you every example. They didn't do it under Genghis Khan. They didn't do it in Rome.
Yeah, it would just be, again, a black swan fallacy.
So,
but
that's not a black swan fallacy, by the way. But that
how would it not be? We just haven't seen it, so therefore it can't happen.
Okay, so first of all, what I'm saying is I'm pointing to a historic standard.
Sure,
and saying the historic standard. That. And I asked you a question. I didn't make a propositional statement, so that's why it can't be fallacious.
But I would say that ultimately it does come down to women. If she doesn't want to sustain pregnancy and is a slave, she does obviously have the opportunity to kill herself.
Yes, but
you can't have society continue.
I will say that I'll grant this. It is logically possible that all women who are enslaved can off themselves. Not disputing that.
Right.
However, it's also logically possible they do not, right?
Sure.
Okay, which one do you think is more likely then?
It would depend on so many different conditions.
Okay, well then that's fair. So give me a single condition in which the female slaves of all of history have ever collectively offed themselves in order to prevent their own slavery.
Well, it wouldn't be to prevent their own slavery. It would be essentially to stop the the next generation. And even if
that
you
would
do
be preventing slavery.
Sure, and even if you do have women who are enslaved.
Can you give me an example of a single?
No, I can't.
Because there isn't any. There's no example.
But I'm sure you wouldn't say that that's moral. That's what men ought to do.
Well, I believe in objective morality. I'll make ought claims based on an unchanging standard, but you're a moral relativist. You can't be like, you can't do that. It's relative. It's totally relative.
Mean?
So is one set of morals of more value than another set of morals?
I think there are moral facts, if that's what you're asking me.
No, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you if one set of moral particulars has more value than another set of moral particulars.
I'm not sure how to answer.
Well, I would just need to know for instance, we have one society over here that murders women and a society over here that does not murder women. Okay. Can you point to something objective that makes the society murdering women? There's some moral claim that you can make which is objective for why that's wrong.
Well, murder by definition is wrong.
No. Why would it's the unjustified?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And unjust mean
Yeah, unjustified doesn't mean immoral.
well, it means wrong. If it's not just, then it's unjust, which would be wrong.
Okay. We'll rephrase then. They set the conditionals for something you would consider to be murder and say it isn't. It's the justified killing of this group of people here. You consider it murder. What makes their moral facts wrong?
I mean, obviously, it would depend on reason and context.
So you can, with reason and context, determine which moral facts are correct?
I think you can have certain observations when it comes to the outcomes. I mean, that would be consequentialism. I think there can be moral facts in terms of there are things that are always wrong regardless of context.
Like
Rape.
Why would that always be wrong?
Well, rape would always be wrong.
Grape. Let's say grape.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, that was right.
Yeah.
Rape would always be wrong because it would because of the harm that it causes.
Yeah. Why is harm wrong?
Because harm is, I mean, again, I would say harm by definition is wrong, because it is an undesirable outcome within our subjective experience.
Okay, so are all undesirable outcomes immoral?
No.
Okay, well then, then you just contradicted your position.
Sure.
So then you can't point to a set of particulars, which are.
I think then again that would be kind of, based on obviously the scale of harm. I think if there's a certain degree,
It wouldn't
of harm,
matter. If it is the case that nothing which is against your subjective experience that you consider harmful is bad, except by your own experience, then we're just back to relativism. It's
Sure.
like, yeah, you're never going to get past relativism. So I don't really know how you can make the claim that this is worse than that. But if you do, right, I'm just willing to grant that you have a principle and we'll adhere to the principle for the purpose of the debate so we don't bog it down with relativism
Sure.
versus non-relativism.
Okay.
We'll kind of just give you the out there because there's no reason to stay on it. But back to this idea of let's see, right before that when we were diving into
your
force
Yeah.
and force doctrine. Yeah, so I would say that might makes. I'm not saying right. I'm not going to make the claim that it makes right, but it
Okay.
does make. And so I think that force doctrine is the necessary requisite for rights. It's the necessary requisite to have a nation. It's the necessary requisite to have anything. It's force.
I disagree because we could obviously agree on rights and have a cooperative
I
nature.
agree. We could agree on rights. And then if somebody violates the rights, what do we use?
I mean, I would be more towards restorative justice, as well as obviously centering the harm that the victim causes.
Both of those require force.
I can agree to some extent, but I don't think necessarily if rights violations happen, that what the punishment or what the outcomes is what one would deem justice. I would say the conditions to which society is to prevent harm would be the ultimate goal.
That would require force.
How?
Because if somebody violates any of your principles or any of your rights, how do you get them to not do that?
Well, I think rights violations happen for specific reasons within society. Like if you were to say you were to say that you violated my rights by coming in my house and stealing all my stuff, then if we're in a society of capitalism to where people are subjected to poverty and need access to material goods.
Okay, let's say we have communism. Communism can't exist without force. It's impossible.
Well, but that's again like an example of how we would prevent rights violations, because I would say like if the right is violated, did you really have it to begin with?
Yeah, but you're baking into your hypothetical here. Oh, you violated my right, and now we have done, and you did it based on some conditional of some externality that drove you to this.
Sure.
Right? Forget that, right? They just fucking want to. They just want to.
I think that's just a lazy presupposition.
That people just want to do things?
Yeah, to just
So,
want to cause harm. To just
Psychopaths
want
don't
to,
exist? Sociopaths, narcissists, these people don't exist, or they do?
They do exist, but again, we're talking about what conditions they exist under, and those are very rare.
Okay, I'll even grant that it's rare.
Yeah.
I'll even grant that it's rare.
But I don't think people are born psychopaths or sociopaths. Again, I would say those are environmental conditions.
Okay, like what, nourishment?
Well, no, your brain is a social organ, and so it responds to your environment. I think they did a study where they analyzed, I forget how many serial killers' brains, but or serial unalivers, but they all had severe damage to the orbital region.
Well, I'd like to take a look at the data there,
Sure.
but was there a meta-analysis done on it?
I can't remember if it was a meta-analysis. I want to say it was, but I
Okay.
can't remember.
Well, in any case, it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what society you live in. There's going to be a prerequisite requirement for force, no matter what. Doesn't matter how. Like, could you even give me in a society in which that would not be the case?
I mean, it's hard to conceptualize in terms of, I think if we had a society based on technology, what do you mean by force? Are we just talking about like violence?
If you have a society in which people have any sort if you have any sort of laws or you have any sort of rights at all, then
Well, I agree with you that
only
laws do.
the only thing which would create a prevention of the violation of said thing by a person would be the requirement of force. So if I want...
I mean, I don't know how force prevents rights violations necessarily in
it's
those
the only thing that
instances.
prevents rights violations.
I mean, well, if you're saying men have the monopoly on force and that's instilled within patriarchy, then why do rights violations occur?
Well, no, that doesn't even follow. It would just follow that men are the only ones who could stop rights violations. I mean, at least in mass.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing that would follow from that. It's like men are the ones in mass who would stop rights violations, which is exactly what happens right now. They are the ones in mass who stop rights violations.
I think when we talk about that too, like obviously the entity that is in control of force is also can commit rights violations.
Sure.
So
Don't disagree at all.
okay.
Totally agree.
So I don't think that the way to society and essentially to establish rights is necessarily through force.
The only way it can be... Well, what happens if you violate somebody's right then?
I mean, what do you mean what happens?
Well, how do you stop them from doing that?
Well, they already did it. What do you mean, how do you stop them?
Well, okay. So I want to take over your country, right?
Why?
Are you just going to let me walk in and do that? Or?
Well, I mean, why? And again, like, do you really have like the modes of production
Because I
and the
feel
materials?
like it.
I just don't think people wake up and just say, "I feel like doing this."
Do you feel like
motive
rapists
behind it.
wake up and feel like graping?
Wake up and feel like graping?
Like
no,
they
not
say,
necessarily.
today is the day?
No.
No?
No.
No? So, again, I'm actually really confused now.
I
So-
think
so
there are
you have-
instances, sure, where grape can be premeditated.
If we didn't enforce
but
our
mean,
laws, are you saying people would break them more or less?
if we didn't enforce our laws,
Would people break them more or less?
I think it would depend on the law.
Any law.
I mean, do you not schmurder because it's illegal?
There's probably a lot of people that I'd like to
Well,
if it was
I'm
legal.
just asking.
Murder's fine, by the way. You
Oh, okay.
So, like, you and I would have
do you murder? Do you not murder because it's illegal?
You and I would have a distinction in what we would consider murder to be. Right? You and I would have a distinction in that.
What do you mean?
I
thought we agreed it's unjust killing.
Yeah, but what we consider justified to be would be different.
Okay.
So that would be where we would have a semantic distinction there, right? So, for instance, if somebody was
So,
stealing...
per the
hang
law-
on, I'll
okay,
explain.
go
so,
ahead,
like,
sorry.
someone is stealing property. Are you entitled to kill them?
I mean, per the law, sure.
No, but do you think morally?
Oh, morally?
Yeah. Like somebody's taking off with your TV.
Oh, no.
Yeah, see, I think dead, right? So you see, we have a distinction in justification.
Sure.
So you think that's murder. I think, no, it's not. So to answer your question, yeah. If the law wasn't there to say you can't shoot him
That's
if he's stealing
crazy.
your TV.
So you would shoot someone who is stealing your TV?
Yeah. In the face.
In the face.
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yes. Yes.
That's a
With an Uzi.
That's a crazy place to plant your flag.
An Uzi.
Yeah. Or, whatever was convenient. Yeah. What's wrong with that?
I would say that the loss of their life certainly outweighs your TV.
Well, I mean, if the TV didn't outweigh their ability to run, I probably would have missed, right? But the thing is what else would have prevented this? Them not stealing my TV.
That's true.
Is the context here? This is a home invasion.
Yeah.
Like it's in your house.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you
I-
can. I think you have the ability to defend your property.
Yeah.
And that your
disagree.
property, anything that's within the domain of on your physical property, right? Meaning property you own. I consider that all to be the French word curtilage. And anything within the viewpoint of curtilage is a violation of your actual property and therefore a rights violation. You have every right to put that person down so that you don't encourage additional people to do it. So in many ways, I think you're defending not just yourself, but everybody around you if more people took that stance.
I think the better solution would be to recognize why someone's stealing your TV.
Okay, yeah. So, but how does that prevent them from doing it? So, okay, we're investigating it now. By the way, we've been investigating why people steal shit for about 100 years, and you know what? We haven't really prevented people from stealing shit. But I'll just grant you that we could.
Isn't it just scarcity, though?
I'll just grant you that we could. No. People steal even when there's no scarcity. Bernie Madoff took off with how many people's pensions? There was no scarcity for him.
Well, I think capitalism creates scarcity even when there's abundance. That it's never enough. You're
that
gonna
sounds like a
lose
cope.
this.
So Bernie Madoff, who had everything, just needed more.
Yeah. How many rich people have clearly enough money to live the rest of their life, not have to work, but still work?
Yeah, and how many women, right, who are living middle class lifestyles steal for fun? They literally will steal things for fun because it gives them a thrill.
Sure.
And it's so there could just be the example of greed and the example of I want to do this thing because I really like doing it. And it's
I think there's a specific reason behind certain psychological habits or impulses, if you will.
Sure, but you can't cure the human condition. You can't.
How do you know that's the human condition, though?
Because we've been dealing with greed, and we've been dealing with these problems, at least in the 20th, 21st century, even with the marching of science. We have not been able to just increase people's material positions in life, and then crime suddenly goes away. That element will always be there. Now, I think you can reduce it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't reduce it.
Right.
People in abject poverty do commit crime more. I'm not saying that that's not the case.
Sure.
What I am saying, though, is that in the interim time while you're trying to solve it, it doesn't change the fact this guy has my TV.
I never said it did.
Yeah, and so I see that as completely justified in blowing his face right off.
I disagree.
Why? Yeah, but why, though?
Again, I would say the life has more value than the TV.
Okay, let's see if you actually believe that.
Okay.
This would necessarily entail that his life had more value than any of your property.
What do you mean?
Well,
Why?
I mean, you're not going to put a number on his life, right? His life's worth more than all the money in the world, isn't it?
It's a man?
Woman.
Oh, then yes.
Yeah, fair enough. So this chick who wants to steal my TV, why can't she steal my house?
How would you steal someone's house?
You squat.
Squatters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now you've stolen my house and you've put me and my family on the street. Can I blow you away then?
Can you or ought?
Should
you?
Ought you morally be able to then?
I would say that housing, because obviously it affects the outcomes of your family's well-being or their own survival, would be justified.
Your position here is inconsistent. You
I
just
don't
said
think
that
it's
property itself.
It's not the property itself. If you had another house to go to that house.
So wait. So if I had two properties, they could chase me out of one of them because I had someplace else to go.
I don't think you should kill them.
But I can't kill them if they're chasing me out of the one place I have to go.
Well, I would say is that the only solution?
I mean, or you could call law enforcement and then they potentially kill them. trying to arrest them or whatever.
I'm just asking you if is that the only solution?
Well, I mean, right now, I think that
It's just in your hypothetical. I mean,
and within the confines of the hypothetical, no, you can have different solutions, right?
then obviously I would opt for different solutions. I mean, why would they want your house?
Who knows? They squat in people's houses all the time.
Because they don't have houses?
No, I think a
Because
lot
they
of
don't have
times.
housing?
I think a lot of times people do have access to housing. They don't want to work, and they squat inside of people's houses because it's free.
Again, I just think that's like a capitalist assessment of human behavior as somehow being human nature.
Yeah, but this doesn't really answer my question about why it is that I can't kill them for taking my TV. It's mine.
I agree.
Yeah, why can't? So if you take my shit, I kill because it's taking away from my kids, right? If you take
Taking
away,
what?
well, if you take my TV, I have to replace it, right?
Sure.
That's going to cost me money.
Sure.
That necessarily takes food and resource away from my children, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So then necessarily what you're actually doing when you steal my TV is
I think it would just be depending on the degree.
Yeah, you're taking things from my children, right? And so the thing is my reason,
potentially, sure.
not potentially. If I have to replace the TV and I have to replace the TV with my money, that's going to
who knows?
necessarily
Maybe
be less.
instead of, buying beer that week, you buy the TV.
Okay, so let's say your budget is set in such a way where you only have X amount of money per week, like most American families.
Sure.
Yeah. So then you're still taking money away from my kids, right?
If you decide to replace the TV, I don't know. If it were between food for my child and a TV, I would probably do food for my child.
Yeah, sure. But the thing is now you have to allocate funds away from your children. So any dollar dollar you take from me, regardless of what I normally would have spent it on, is taking money away from my kids necessarily.
Possibly, sure.
Yeah. So the thing is like if you take from my kids, I kill you. Problem is, it seems reasonable to me. It's within the confines of reason, logically stacks up.
I don't think so. I think that would just be depending on degree.
Why does it depend on the degree? If you don't steal shit, you don't get shot. It's simple. Like, what's the degree?
I mean, what if they were stealing food? Would that be an issue for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a person has a right to defend their food.
Would you find it more justified if someone is like, would you steal food to feed your children?
Possibly. But do I think a person is not justified in doing something about that? I think they are.
I'm not saying they're not justified in doing something about that.
Right.
I'm saying, like, obviously the reaction to
yeah. So what
would be
I
justified
do?
or not.
Can I see myself doing a bad thing on behalf of my children?
Yeah.
Sure. But that doesn't mean that I, within the confines of reason, don't understand that a person can't do something about that. It's like you can't say, well,
I'm not saying that you can do nothing.
Right.
I think you could try and take the TV back, punch them in the face.
Well, that's dangerous.
Sure.
They could punch you back.
Yeah, so is shooting them. They could shoot at you back.
Usually if you shoot at somebody,
I don't know
they're
how you
holding
can
a
say
TV
my situation's dangerous, but yours isn't.
if somebody's running with your TV and you're shooting at them, I don't think they're going to be shooting back.
They're very skilled.
They're going to hold the TV like this and grab the gun.
They're thin. Yeah, you can use one arm and,
You don't think that's like moderately deranged?
I don't think it's moderately deranged.
You don't think so? You don't think that TVs require two hands for men to carry them?
No. I guess it depends how big the TV is.
Mm-hmm. Like your living room TV? You're gonna take
my
both
living
hands.
room TV is big,
Yeah.
but like my bedroom TV is
Also,
small.
by the way, it's just less dangerous in general. If you fire the first shot, chances are pretty good that that's the end of the confrontation.
if you hit them, yeah.
No, you don't even have to hit them. Just fire the shot even.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Even that usually is enough to end the confrontation. So
Okay.
Anyway, I guess we've stayed on force doctrine for a while.
Yes.
Did you want to cross-examine me on this?
I guess I am curious in terms of if you see, so you don't make this as a moral claim. It's just kind of a fact of reality.
It's a descriptive claim.
So do you think men should do these things? Like,
Which things?
that they should use force as an authority against women?
Well, sometimes. In some cases, sure. Like if
Like
a
what?
woman's committing a crime, something like that, I think men are totally justified in using force. I think if a woman attacks a man, he's totally justified in using force.
I'm talking as like a societal.
Yeah, but these are societal prescriptions. If a woman attacks a man, yeah, it's perfectly acceptable for him to
Sure.
smack her
But
up.
there are instances where you say like if, like, would you condone wife beating?
Well, no, but I wouldn't condone husband beating. So
Sure, but you're saying that, men's authority is through force. This is how, why
No.
we should have patriarchy.
no, enforcement. Not so. That's the
But
requisite.
enforcement is.
Yeah, it is force. Yes. Yeah, but that
So
doesn't mean
authority is through
Remember, my
force.
claim is that might makes, not that it makes right,
Okay.
but that it.
So it's not a
shapes.
moral ought.
No, it's not. It's just a descriptive truth.
So do you think that men should work to cooperate with women in society?
No, I think women should cooperate with men in society because they
What
depend
does
on.
co mean?
Yeah, I'll explain. I think that women depend on men for the use of force doctrine for their own protection. So I think.
I
they
mean,
should
I think under
cooperate.
patriarchy, sure.
No, I think under matriarchy they still depend on men for force.
Well, you said protection, right?
Yeah, force.
Yeah. What are you protecting them from?
Well, you could be protecting them from other men generally.
Right. So I think under patriarchy, male violence is pervasive.
Under
And so that
matriarchy, male
creates-
violence is still pervasive.
Why?
Why is having a female leader going to make male violence no longer pervasive? That's bizarre.
Well, I would-
there's a difference between saying I have a society that's just filled 100% with women. That would be a
Sure.
claim, but you're not saying that.
Well,
you're talking about a matriarchy versus a patriarchy.
Right, but I think when it comes to patriarchy, obviously we're talking about male supremacy and domination.
Yeah.
And a form of domination is through violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with all of that. So
Yeah.
what?
So obviously if that's not a tenet of matriarchy, then I don't think male violence would be pervasive because
Why
it's not
not?
used as a form of authority.
Are there still going to be men there?
Yeah.
What's going to make them less violent?
Well, obviously because it's not used as a form of authority. It's
But I
like
just got done
violence
telling
is
you
not
that
tied to
wherever
masculinity.
men are and women are, women will depend on men for the use of force, period. That's my claim, regardless of where they are. So it doesn't matter if you have a queen. And it doesn't even matter if you put women
I think if you
as
use,
the CEOs
I
of
mean,
everything.
are we assuming that like just authority in general is force?
No. Authority in general isn't force, but in order to have rights or laws or governance of any kind requires force.
I mean, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, so that's going to require men. So women are dependent upon men for force, period. So I think that
Under a system of law, sure.
under any system of governance, there's no system of governance in which women are not dependent on men for force. None.
You don't think that can be replaced with technology?
Nope. How? Men can destroy the technology. That's what force doctrine is.
Men maybe in groups too, but couldn't I say that about women?
No, because you're still going to have to compete with a male group. So your only options here are either this. Like, let's even say you reduce the male population down to 5%. You're just like, pff, yay, it's all women now, and it's 5% men or something like this. You still would have a hard time controlling them. We know this because there have been war-torn nations where like 80% of the men have died, and they're still in charge because of that monopoly on force. It's not because women don't have access to guns. They have access to guns, but they're less good with them. Guns require physical strength. Technology requires physical strength. Like tanks, it requires physical strength to load one.
Okay. I mean, but when we're talking about cooperation, like co means with, so what's the delineation between you saying women should cooperate with men rather than men should cooperate with women?
Because men have the option that women don't have of utilizing force to make you cooperate.
Well, then that's not cooperating.
Yeah. Well, it is. Well, hang on. But it is still cooperation. So the idea here is just this. Is it the case that men should cooperate with women? I guess if they choose to.
Well, that's what cooperation is.
I would just say if they choose to.
I
wouldn't say that they should. I mean, they're going to be the ones who make the rules because they have the force.
But that's not cooperation.
Well, it can be cooperation.
No, co means with.
Yeah, it is with.
It's doing it together.
Are you saying that if somebody's in a position of authority, necessarily that's not a cooperation? Like, do you not cooperate with your children?
I mean, I do cooperate with my children.
Yeah, so then
but that's
aren't you an authority?
That's not an authority.
You're not an authority?
In authority in what sense?
You're in charge.
In charge of certain things, sure.
You're in charge of everything.
What do you mean I'm in charge of everything? I don't tell him like what he
Can
needs
little
to play
Johnny
with.
tell you he's not going to the doctor today, Mom? Can he tell you he's not going to
if
school?
he's sick,
Can he
sure.
tell you he's not going to school?
Again, if he's sick, that's a possibility.
Okay, but
or
you
I
think
don't want to
he's-
go to school.
You
I'm not
think he's
feeling
lying?
well.
He's like, Mom, I'm sick. You think he's lying? Is Johnny
Okay.
going to school?
Most likely.
Yeah. So
But that's not cooperative. That's me using
when
my
he goes
authority.
and gets in the car, and he's quiet, when you take him to school and you drop him off, that is cooperation.
I see what you mean in that sense. Maybe there's a better word that I'm trying to think of where it's more working together and negotiating, where there is no necessary authority, like a partnership.
Yeah, but why should men have a partnership when they have the monopoly on force? I don't see why they need to have a partnership with women.
Why would you want to subjugate women?
It's not subjugation any more than it is with your children. So I think it's a privileged position that they get because they have the use of force. If they can be drafted and women can't, they get extra rights. Women don't get.
I don't think that like war and the draft can always be like a necessary condition of the human existence.
Okay, give me a single 100-year span in which there wasn't massive war.
The
Anywhere in the world.
Iroquois lived in peace for 600 years.
No, the Iroquois fought plenty, especially within the Iroquois.
I mean,
Your time.
there is a period of time, but there was also a period of treaty and peace.
The Iroquois well, are you talking about the Iroquois Confederacy?
No, the indigenous tribe, the Iroquois.
Yeah, I know. They had a confederacy, though.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Confederacy meaning like in the United States, but under like a loose doctrine of law. The Iroquois Confederacy. My understanding is that the Iroquois fought endlessly, along with most Native American tribes.
No, there was a period of, I would have to look up the source, a period of 600 years of peace. No, I don't think war is a continuous state of mankind. War is just fighting over resources.
Yeah, you sure?
Yeah.
And mankind's always fighting over resources.
Well, yeah, because of either scarcity or manufactured scarcity.
Well, I mean, scarcity can simply happen naturally, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Are we
we're-
talking about like?
So
like
if you
famine?
so if you just have natural scarcity, which happens all the time, you're going to have conflict, and the enforcers in that conflict are going to be men. Men are going to be the defenders of your country,
right,
your
but when it
nation, your
comes to
household.
like natural scarcity,
Mm-hmm.
then obviously if you're in like communal groups, then that scarcity can be overcome where there's abundance.
Not always. Depends on what it is. Like, how are you going to communally in a group do anything about a food shortage? There's no food.
Other communities.
Yeah, if you have access to them.
Right, and I would say like in today's society we absolutely do.
Yeah, that's true. In today's
Yeah.
society, we do have global trade, things like this. You can assist people with various things. And war hasn't gone away at all. Not even a little bit.
Well,
in the 20th, 21st
right,
century,
because
there's
of
been more warfare
manufactured.
than ever.
Yeah, because of manufactured scarcity. I agree.
No, it's not always because of manufactured scarcity.
Yeah, it would be dependence theory.
Okay, so why did we go to war with Germany?
Which
That was over
time?
scarcity the second time?
World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the rise of fascism.
So what was the scarcity?
Well, within that one, I would say obviously it was like authoritarian regimes trying
What was
to
the
enact
scarcity, though?
land
From who?
from Germany. Germany was trying to.
How did that affect us?
I mean, it didn't, but obviously we wanted to stop imperialism.
So it didn't have
only for
anything to do
Germany.
with scarcity for us,
I
did
mean,
it?
it eventually down the line, it was America's concern that Germany or Russia would become a superpower and then start to come take our land. That's what.
Wait, what? So there was no scarcity for us, and we still got involved in the war. It's not always about scarcity of resources.
I mean, I do think it is somewhat of a basis. Because
That there's
isn't that what regimes are about power or authority over your land and your people?
Yeah, your
And
land and your
acquiring-
people.
And acquiring resources.
Yeah, what did that have to do with us? We didn't have to get involved in that war.
I know, you're absolutely right. We didn't.
Yeah, so, but we didn't get involved
I'm
in it.
saying that the
it wasn't even
basis-
packaged as like resource problems. Nothing. So what
I mean-
resources were we without?
I'm saying that's like the crux of war.
It wasn't the crux of that war.
I mean, we were intervening in order to stop the imperialism from Germany. to
Very
other
strange.
countries.
How does that? Well, here's the thing. Even if we had let it go, wouldn't we have benefited from that?
I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, that had nothing to do with scarcity. I don't think that the propensity for human war and violence is always about scarcity and resource. I think that that's Marxist nonsense.
What would it be about?
Oh, it could be about all sorts of different things. It could be about an idea of conquest, right?
What do you mean by conquest?
Oh, I want to take over everything because I want to.
Well, isn't land a resource?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's, what's the scarcity? You have plenty of land. You just want more anyway.
Yes.
But how does that come down to scarcity? Because you're saying the motivation is, I don't have enough of it.
It's essentially acquisition of resources. And if you have more resources, then you're less likely to have scarcity.
Okay, so you agree with me that kings are the ones who send their people to war.
Yeah.
Do kings have a lack of resources?
I mean, not within like their own personal experience, but within their kingdom. Yeah, isn't that what led to the fall of Rome? Was essentially too much global expansion, and then because they didn't have the resources in order to sustain their civilization.
No. Well, I mean, maybe there's a small part there, but it was Christianity basically is what destroyed Rome. So that's what basically took out Rome. You know, when it's all said and done, was Christianity. It was the idea of no more unification of religious paganism. But I guess that's neither here nor there. You could that's another thing you could be fighting over, just religion. What's the scarcity there?
Oh, sure.
I don't like, Christian says, I don't like Muslims. Muslims say, I don't like Christians.
Sure.
Where's the scarcity?
I mean, obviously, that's not a scarcity of resources. So, sure, I can concede that there could be other motivations.
Yeah. So, and
I would say that would be the main motivation, though.
Okay, and so then within any motivation, men are going to be the operators of force doctrine. They're going to be the ones fighting the war, right?
Okay, yeah.
So if that's the case, they're going to necessarily need authority to do that.